Hey everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. In this video, I'm going to talk about the possibility of seeing altcoins perform well in the near future. We're going to try to get a sense of the likelihood that that could happen by looking at three key indicators. First of those is what we have up here on the chart right now, which is Bitcoin dominance. Second one is the Ebtc ratio. And the third one is the USDT dominance, so the dominance of the most dominant stablecoin. And by putting these indicators together, we're going to try to get a sense and speculate a little bit about the likelihood that we could see alts perform well, and maybe, although this is a loaded term, maybe even to see an alt season in the not too distant future. So if you guys like the content, subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and follow us on Twitter. We put out regular updates there about our risk indicators and more. So I'm going to get my face out of the way to make sure that we can see the chart clearly. This is the weekly chart on Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin dominance just refers to the percentage of the total crypto market cap that's represented by the value of Bitcoin. This is useful to look at for a couple of reasons. One is that it can inform your allocation between assets. It's really important to keep in mind that even if the altcoins you're holding are going up in terms of dollar value, if they're lagging behind Bitcoin, then you're incurring an opportunity cost, leaving money on the table there that you could be accruing just by holding Bitcoin. And so, what we really want to try to accomplish here is not just to make some money, but is to make as much as we can by using the information available to us in a strategic manner. And Bitcoin dominance is really important for doing that. The second thing that's useful about Bitcoin dominance is that it can help us try to anticipate these alt seasons, these major periods of altcoin outperformance. These seem to come along every so often, or at least they have over the last few years. The most recent one was, right at the beginning of 2021. We saw this top right at the end of 2020, and then Bitcoin dominance entered this precipitous decline. It just absolutely dumped for about 4.5 to 5 months. And during that period, altcoins performed extremely well. That's arguably an understatement for many. There were some altcoins that put in truly impressive moves. And in general, the altcoin market performed very well relative to Bitcoin. And that's what we see reflected on the Bitcoin dominance chart. I think it would be fair to say that for a lot of people, these alt seasons are really one of the major things that folks are trying to experience as crypto investors. It is important to take a long-term perspective and to take modest profits when they're available. But realistically, this is true of me, and I think of many people, it would be nice to try to catch the bulk of one of these alt season moves, because this is when even a modest allocation to altcoins, small positions in the right assets can multiply a bunch of times and can really transform a portfolio. And with discipline, meaning taking profits when they're available and then moving them into more stable assets like Bitcoin, or taking them out of the market entirely and paying down your debts, or buying a gift for someone you care about, or leading your life. These are things that we would all like to have that experience if possible. And Bitcoin dominance is, the most important indicator for trying to catch those moves. So the question is, where are we right now on Bitcoin dominance, and what can it tell us about the likely trajectory of the market over the coming period of time? Well, since May of 2021, after that alt season was completed, Bitcoin dominance has been ranging. Again, this is the weekly chart, so we're looking at a pretty good chunk of time here. This is approaching a year that we've been in this range, from approximately 40% to 50%. We see these wicks, these times when Bitcoin dominance got rejected off of these levels and then moved back down into the range, or back up into the range. You can also see that over this most recent period of time, toward the end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022, Bitcoin Dominance spent some more time down here. And since then, Bitcoin Dominance has bounced up back into the middle of the range. And over the past 2 weeks, we've seen these rejection wicks from the middle of the range back down toward the downside. And this week, really today, this is Monday, we're seeing the first significant signs of a pullback on Bitcoin dominance. And what that reflects is that Bitcoin itself on the price chart is moving sideways. It's even pulled back a little bit, even as altcoins are performing well, picking up a few percentage points today, many altcoins. And that translates into this pullback on the Bitcoin dominance chart. And this looks like it could be the beginning of a downtrend. We're in the third week now of red candles on Bitcoin dominance. So what's the likelihood that this is going to continue? Well, I mean, it is the case that a trend like this forming after several weekly candles get rejected down, leaving shadows to the upside, often indicates at least a short-term trend reversal. Since Bitcoin dominance has been in this price range, it has tended to move between the upper and lower boundaries of the range with relative consistency. This is actually the first time that it looks like it might be falling short of a full bounce to the upside. So rather than touching the top bound of the range, it looks like it's rolling over to the downside here prematurely. So that's a first over this range for Bitcoin dominance and could indicate that a new trend is forming. I think the thing that we want to look at here is what happens if and when it revisits this lower boundary around 40%. The last time it was there, a couple of months ago, it didn't manage to punch through. It got rejected off of this range ultimately after spending a good amount of time there and went back toward the upside. If that happens again, then that means no alt season. So as this approaches this 40% level, if indeed it gets there, that's when we really want to perk up and pay close attention. There could be some action between now and then, and maybe it'll take a couple of weeks. But once we get there, we want to see how Bitcoin dominance reacts. Where things would really start to get interesting and would potentially spell a major alt season is if we saw, especially a weekly close, but if we saw any amount of significant price action below this level, below this range specifically, well below 40% on Bitcoin dominance, that's when things would really potentially start to get interesting, because that would represent an invalidation of this range. And an invalidation of the range is what we would need to see for a major move to the downside on Bitcoin dominance and a major alt season. The next thing that we want to look at is the ETH-BTC ratio. So this is the proportion of Ethereum's value relative to Bitcoin's value. And this is a more targeted version of the same kind of information. This tells us not about Bitcoin relative to the entire rest of the crypto market cap, but specifically to Ethereum, which of course is the most important and largest non-Bitcoin asset. So this is also an important indicator of how the money is flowing and whether we would expect to see Bitcoin outperforming Ethereum or Ethereum outperforming Bitcoin. And we have a different kind of pattern on this chart to some degree relative to Bitcoin dominance, which we were just looking at, but it's actually rather similar. So here on May 10th, we see that Ethereum against Bitcoin completed its major move and then entered this kind of consolidation range. It's been upward sloping rather than sideways like we saw on Bitcoin dominance. We had those two parallel lines drawn on Bitcoin dominance, and dominance has been respecting those boundaries more or less since the middle of May 2021. Here instead, we have what looks like a trend of higher lows and higher highs. And right now, Ethereum versus Bitcoin is in its third green week in a row after putting in what looks like it could be yet another in a series of 4 higher lows on the macro scale here for Bitcoin, for Ethereum relative to Bitcoin. If that holds, then this would corroborate what we're seeing on the Bitcoin dominance chart. On the Bitcoin dominance chart, we saw the Dominance is rolling over in the middle of the range, and that's the first time that that's happened since it's been in the range, which is bearish for Bitcoin dominance and therefore potentially bullish for altcoins. Here, we're seeing something compatible, which is that we have a new higher low on the Ethereum to Bitcoin ratio, and it looks like it's now going into its move back up to the upside of this upward sloping channel or this trend that we've seen on the Ethereum to Bitcoin ratio. If that continues, this could be continuing right on upwards toward the 0.09 level and potentially beyond. That's what we would want to see. So just as on the Bitcoin dominance chart, we were looking at around 40% and 39% as critical levels that we want to watch if and when it approaches those levels. Here, we're going to be looking at that 0.09 as a critical level, because if we see price action up there, especially if we were to see a weekly close up there, that would validate that this trend has continued. It would be a higher high on the Ebtc ratio. So we have these two critical levels that we want to watch. And yet in the short term, we see that both of those are trending in the right direction for good performance for altcoins. Dominance is going down for Bitcoin, and the ETH-BTC ratio has just put in a higher low and is now moving back toward the upside. Now, it's important to note when thinking both about Bitcoin dominance and the ETH-BTC ratio that these don't necessarily reflect an uptrend in dollar value, right? These are both ratios of cryptos to cryptos. We want to try to put this in context here by looking not only at these dominance charts, these ratios of cryptos to cryptos, but also trying to get a sense of whether these reflect an influx of money from outside the market. In other words, is Bitcoin dominance going down because people are selling their Bitcoins for altcoins? Or is it going down because people are buying altcoins with US dollars? That's a really critical additional piece of information that you need to interpret Bitcoin dominance and also the ETH-BTC ratio. And so I'm going to pull up the USDT dominance chart next so that we can try to get a sense of where that is heading. Is there new money coming into the market that could drive an uptrend? Or is this just old money going around the washing machine in the crypto market itself? So I've pulled up USDT dominance here. USDT Tether is the most dominant stablecoin. A lot of people hold them on exchanges and maybe earn yield on a decentralized exchange, or just keep them ready for when they're ready to re-enter the risk market, when they're actually ready to buy Bitcoin or altcoins with stablecoins. So this can tell us whether a change in dominance is likely to reflect just movement between the two assets that you're comparing, so Ethereum and Bitcoin, or Bitcoin versus altcoins in general, or whether it's likely to reflect new people spending new dollars on crypto and affecting the dominance ratios that way. So this is, again, the weekly chart of USDT dominance. And we can see pretty clearly that USDT dominance has been in an uptrend since the beginning of November, which is when things got really bearish for the crypto market. So that means that since then, the percentage of the total crypto market cap represented by Tether has gone from about 2.5% all the way at its peak to about 5.2% and is now at about 4.38%. When we look at this and try to think about what it means for Bitcoin dominance and for the ETH-BTC ratio, what we would want to see is a downtrend forming on USDT dominance. If USDT dominance is going down, that means that people are spending their dollars on crypto. If USDT dominance is going up, that means that people are selling their crypto for dollars. And so in order for a downtrend on BTC dominance to mean that an alt season is likely, it needs to be supported by people spending their USDT on altcoins. And we don't have a definitive answer on that yet, although we do have some bearishness on USDT dominance forming. So we saw a very bearish candle close last week, and now the beginning of this week is also bearish for USDT dominance. What we'd like to see is for this to roll over and move back down toward the downside, like it's done so many times in the past. This is a decent place to be expecting USDT dominance to go into a decline because it's been pumping for so long and it's pumped so much. I mean, it more than doubled in terms of the percentage of the total crypto market cap. So it's quite a reasonable thing to be expecting that we would see a pullback on USDT dominance. We know that there's a lot of money on the sidelines, and for good reason. The market has been so bearish recently that people have been escaping and waiting for some more certainty. Now it seems like people might be beginning to re-enter the market. Over the past couple of weeks, we're seeing people spending their USDT, and we're also seeing some bullish signals for altcoins. Ethereum is outperforming Bitcoin right now, and BTC dominance is pulling back, at least in the short term. Caution is required. We looked at levels on both BTC dominance and ETH BTC that could put us back into a range, put the ball back into Bitcoin's court.